realize that. Ed, we'll ask you this. I see that Clem Blazewick put this interesting question in the chat, and I think it would be an interesting one for discussion if anybody wants to chime in. The question is, are jet fighter pilots being replaced by drones? I,
I
John
think they
Kramer,
are.
I would think they are too, and I see John Kramer, a career Air Force guy, shaking his head no. No, John? Can you unmute yourself and
I don't think it will ever happen.
no?
Those fighter jocks like to fly and fight.
So it won't happen because the pilots like flying too much. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying? What if it's cheaper? What if it's safer? What if it's more effective? I mean, come on, John.
I don't see it happening.
You're always going to have a Army Air Force.
Well, I guess you're always going to have an Air Force, but
Right.
okay. You know what? Here's the real and Ben Wright, you must have some insight. You follow Air Force developments very closely, Ben. I'm going to ask you: do you think drones will replace fighter pilots, or is it already happening?
No, they won't replace fighter pilots. The need for the human perception is always there, and the human control of the situation is always there.
Okay.
They are moving though to more. What they're really moving to is drone wingmen, and so you can have a formation with a real person leading it, but under his control or her control, are wingmen who are computers. And so they'll have the best of both worlds, what AI and computers can do, but also what the ultimate computers can do, the human mind.
Hmm.
And, now there'll be more mechanized stuff. I mean, they're talking about pilotless tankers and air transport. But even in those fields, I don't think you'll see a complete replacement of people on board. I mean, there's a move because of the shortage of pilots to have robot co-pilots,
Yes.
for example, and particularly in the tankers and airlift aircraft, where you would have an aircraft commander with co-pilot instead of being a person would be a computer.
Okay, the Air Force pilot or Navy pilot days or Marine pilot days are not numbered.
No, there'll always be a need for pilots.
There'll always be a
You
need
got
for
to
them.
have people. People have got to be in control, and you got to have the human mind's perception of the situation.
Would it be correct to say that drones would be then kind of a supplement or a force multiplier?
Yeah, I think supplement or force multiplier. I mean, I've known people who flew drones from the ground remotely, and there's demand for people to do that. In fact, they have NCOs that do that now. That not very many, but some. Um, but they went through the same combat trauma, even though they might be sitting in the States flying a drone, flying a mission in Iraq or Afghanistan, but knowing that they were releasing weapons of destruction in what they did. In fact, they came out of their shifts flying the drones, and they would go into a quiet room and a decompression, just like in a combat zone, because they were in a combat zone before they went home.
Man, that's amazing. Yeah, I've read that too, Ben, and seen that. Yeah, it's sobering to think about the
Yes.
work that the drone operators and I guess we could call it. I mean, Rich, I guess we would call it trauma. The trauma that the
They,
drone
they do
operators.
experience trauma, even though they're miles and miles away. Yeah,
Okay, would we call them combat veterans?
I would say yes. I mean, they released weapons or gained intelligence or whatever they did in a combat zone.
And we have that conversation here a lot about the distinctions between combat veterans and non-combat veterans, our drone operators, and maybe Al, one of you, somebody emailed that question. Al, maybe it was you. Al, could you unmute?
Yeah. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry for hogging all this time, but I I talked to this lady I met at the gym, and her daughter apparently had just graduated from West Point, whatever, I don't know how long ago. And she was a platoon leader. And I said, well, how many men or women did you? She said, no, it was just men and women, but it was a platoon of drones. They operated 2 drones, and it was like 10 people or whatever. Uh, and she said one of the biggest things they never wanted to mess up with is losing a drone to the enemy. That was like a ultimate no-no. Don't lose a drone. But I never heard that before. A platoon that handled 2 drones.
A platoon of drone operators. Did you say they were Army? She was Army?
Army.
She was Army. Okay. And okay. Yeah. I need to start figuring this stuff out. Like, because in after World War II, when the Air Force became a branch of service, there was a very big debate. And then when missiles came in the 1950s, 60s, there's a very big debate of who gets the missiles, who gets to fly jets. Does the Navy get in on that action? Does Army get to fly airplanes? And eventually there was a kind of division of assets among the service branches. And I wonder if the same thing is going on with drones. I don't know. Hi, Jim Roberts. I came in last night at the airport, and I got a flight in from Detroit late last night, and I'm walking through the Pittsburgh airport. Who should I see on the video panel right in the main concourse at the airport than Jim Roberts talking about his service in Vietnam? I loved it. I loved it.
It's your fault. You're the one who connected me with those people.
And I know that.
I'm not even sure what they were doing. Don Nemchek was there.
Yep.
We went in for an interview, but I never really understood what was going to happen. And then I get a call from a friend saying, I saw you at the airport. So I'm not even sure what they're doing.
Have you seen it?
No. Yes, they mailed me a link to the actual presentation, but I don't know the context in which it's being used.
You have not seen it you have not seen yourself at the airport.
No, she sent me a link to the video after they edited so I could watch it and see whether or not I guess I could say, no, don't put it out.
Because Don Nemchek is also on it, of course.
I think he did his own unit. Don's on tonight, I think.
Yeah, he's on tonight. And there are these kiosks. There's several of them in the airport. I mean, so we see you all over the airport. And they're large screens.
What is the context of what is it for? What is it? Just veterans talking about their service?
I think it's capturing like Pittsburgh stories. I think that's the concept, because there are other people interviewed about other things too. But I just happened to see you and Don before, and last night it was just you. So yeah, very very neat, very neat.
The person doing the interviewing basically said, you're never going to hear my voice on the video. I'm going to ask you a question, answer the question start out by saying, she said, when were you in Vietnam? I had to answer, I was in Vietnam. And so, but she asked some very perceptive questions. It was, you're an excellent interviewer of veterans being a non-veteran. That's one of the things I like about this program. And I would put her on the same platform as you. And she was really it was very, very nicely done.
And who was it? Who was it, Jim?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Was it
Don
somebody?
might know, but Don might be able to tell you. But I thought it was well done.
Okay, Don, if you do know, please let me know. Was it somebody at Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Hall and Museum, or no, it was somebody who worked for the agency that?
I think they were just using Soldiers and Sailors as their studio. I don't think they were part of the actual hall, but that's my impression. I don't know that for sure.
Okay, well, I'll be interested to learn that. We've having some debate. Dick Snyder, you weighed in. Terry Swank weighed in and said that there's a lot of discussion and debate, I suppose, over whether drone operators should be called combat veterans. Dick, how are you, Dick? Can't hear you.
I'm here.
Okay, you're here. All right. So, Dick, you said if you served in combat zone, you should be considered a combat veteran. The stress of being such a zone. Would you consider drone operators who are working from a plywood shack in Arizona a combat veteran?
Well, that's not a combat zone.
But the
If
thing
you're
that
in,
they're
if you're in Arizona, I don't know. No, I think you have to be. My point is, I've always been told for every fighting person in the bush, there are 7 people supporting him. And
yes,
I'm saying the people that support them are also combat veterans because, you still have the uh, possibility of, hostile attacks.
right, right.
And that's, I don't care who you are, it's always in the back of your head.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're a drone operator operating in North America, but operating the drone that's in Afghanistan, you're not in harm's way. Although you're delivering a lot of firepower, you're not in harm's way, and that's a significant difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I think
that'll get you
absolutely.
a cup of coffee somewhere, I guess, but
Yeah. Jim?
I would echo what was said. I mean, I wouldn't denigrate their service in any way. And I wouldn't say they don't have PTSD. I think a lot of the people that work on the atomic bomb project after the bomb was dropped had horrible PTSD. But I think to be a combat veteran, you've got to have a chance of not coming home.
Yeah.
And the people in supply, the people flying the transport, there's a chance they're not going to come back. You're flying troops into Tonson at the time they're mortaring. You may not make it. So I think there's got to be a personal risk of loss before you can actually attach the word combat. And again, that's just my opinion. It's open to debate.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah. It's an interesting concept and conversation.